Okay, let's dive right in. Today, we're looking at a pretty bold proposal from within the Indian Armed Forces. We're talking about a plan to completely redefine its core of signals, basically transforming it from a support service into a frontline combat arm built for the information age.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll get into why this is even on the table. Then, we'll dig into the proposal itself, the actual plan for making it happen, the challenges it's up against, and finally, we'll see how this whole idea stacks up against what other major powers are doing around the world.
All right, so let's start with the big why. What's the fundamental driver behind this whole idea? Well, it's simple. The very nature of war has changed, and the battlefield, it's just not what it used to be. For, centuries, we thought of conflict in physical terms, land, sea, and air. But the modern battlespace has exploded. It now includes these invisible but absolutely vital domains of information, the electromagnetic spectrum, and of course, cyberspace. And this quote right here, it really gets to the heart of this new way of thinking. The doctrinal paper makes this powerful analogy. Signals units aren't just connecting people anymore. No, they are actively fighting for control of the spectrum, the same way infantry or tanks fight to control physical ground. That's a massive shift in mindset. And what this all boils down to is a really critical conclusion. The information domain is now seen as the decisive battle space. What does that mean? It means winning or losing in the world of information can literally decide the outcome of a war before a single physical shot is even fired. Okay, so with that new reality firmly in mind, let's get to the core of the proposal, this fundamental reclassification of the core of signals. So to really get this, you gotta understand the lingo. A support service is there to enable the fight. Think logistics, medical corps. A combat arm is the one that's directly in the fight. The whole idea here is to move signals from that first bucket into the second. And listen, this isn't just changing a name on a piece of paper. It's a complete rewrite of their mission and their role. And this shift has several huge objectives. Yeah, it's about formally changing the name, but it's really about making signals the central nervous system of information warfare. It means pushing through massive reforms and, frankly, getting Indian military doctrine up to speed with what's happening globally. Okay, so that's the big idea, but how do you actually do it? What would this transformation really look like on the ground? Let's get into the plan. So, down at the tactical level, the proposal imagines creating these brand new all-in-one units called Signal Combat Groups, or SCGs. You can see the structure here. It's designed to put communications, cyber ops, electronic warfare, and data analysis all together under one commander, making them way more agile and responsive right there on the front line. And if you think that's a big deal, check this out. At the strategic level, the plan is even more ambitious. It calls for a brand new unified information warfare command. This would pull together all the infocentric power from the Army, Navy, and the Air Force, all under one roof, to streamline the whole shebang. And this slide really shows the change in mindset. The new mandate wouldn't just be about defense, protecting your own networks. It would be offensive too. We're talking network attacks, denial of service, really complex deception ops. And it would all be plugged into a modern command and control system. That JADC2 thing, you can think of it as a military Internet of Things, connecting every sensor to every shooter across all services in real time. Now, you've got to understand, this isn't a plan for tomorrow. It's a vision for the next decade. The whole roadmap is laid out in 3 phases. Phase 1 is all about getting the doctrine right and running exercises. Then, Phase 2 is about actually setting up that new command and some pilot units. And finally, Phase 3 aims for full integration by 2035. But with any bold, visionary plan, the path is never straight. An expert review panel took a really hard look at this proposal, and they pointed out some pretty significant challenges. So here's their verdict, kind of at a glance. On one hand, they said, hey, this idea is solid, it's practical, it makes sense strategically. But on the other hand, they raised some serious red flags. They pointed to doctrines that were a bit too vague, timelines that seemed maybe a little too optimistic, and some real questions about command structures and getting different tech to work together. And digging a little deeper, the panel asked some really tough practical questions, like how exactly is this new doctrine going to work inside the Army versus the Navy? How are you actually going to get all this different equipment from different services to talk to each other? Are we being realistic about how long it takes to develop and buy this new tech? And maybe most importantly, when a crisis hits, who is actually in charge?
These are serious questions.
But look, the review panel didn't just point out problems. They offered solutions. They laid out a clear path forward. They said, formalize the doctrine in writing. Test everything in small trials before you go big. Be realistic about your tech. Create new training for a new kind of combat signal officer. And, crucially, issue a crystal clear policy on who's in command.
So, you might be wondering, how does this ambitious Indian plan fit into the bigger picture? Let's zoom out for a second and see how other major military powers are trying to solve the exact same problem.
This table is a great snapshot. The US basically treats information warfare as a joint function. It's something everybody does. The UK sees it as a cross-domain capability. And then you have China, which created this massive, centralized strategic support force to handle everything information-related. So 3 very different approaches.
And this is what makes the Indian proposal so interesting. It's a hybrid model. It doesn't just dissolve the core of signals into a generic function or merge it into some huge umbrella command. The idea is to keep the core's unique identity, but embed it deeper than ever before into actual combat operations.
So after all the analysis, all the debate, what's the final verdict? Well, the consensus seems to be that the proposal is forward-thinking. It's plausible on the ground. And while the tech goals are definitely ambitious, they aren't impossible. It's technologically aspirational. But here's the bottom line. The most crucial point of all is this. Having a great idea is one thing. Making it actually happen is everything. The success of this entire transformation hinges on how it's done. It has to be phased, it has to be tested every step of the way, and it has to make sure all 3 services are working together in perfect harmony. And that leaves us with one final big thought to chew on. This whole proposal is really asking a much bigger question about the future of warfare itself. When code is a weapon, and the electromagnetic spectrum is the new high ground, who is the frontline soldier of the future? What does that even look like?